We were surrounded by Crudunians, a race of aliens from a remote planet in the Andromeda galaxy. They had invaded our upcoming colonization of Proxima B, a planet we had been terraforming for years. The project had been extensive, and we had made huge strides in transforming the twilight zone of the planet into a livable, thriving environment. But now the Crudunians, ruthless conquerors, had arrived with one clear objective: destroy us, take our technology, and claim Proxima B for themselves. Our base was lightly defended, only a few soldiers and a couple of hundred technicians, scientists, and laborers. But humanity, our species, was stubborn. We had fought for survival since the dawn of time, and we wouldn't give up without a battle. Lieutenant Nash barked orders to reinforce the left flank. "You guys, go to the west side of the camp, and don't let these punks run us over." His voice was filled with urgency and the quiet confidence of a seasoned leader. I was part of the team heading to the left flank. About 20 soldiers, laborers, and scientists, all armed with whatever weapons we could scrounge together, prepared to fight like our lives depended on it. Because they did, the Crudunians weren't taking any prisoners. We raised our plasma rifles and opened fire. The sound of our weapons was drowned out by the constant rhythmic blasts of the aliens' weapons and the thunderous roar of the war they brought. We held them back for a while, pushing them off the outer defenses, but they were relentless. Within moments, their numbers overwhelmed us. 7 of my group fell in an instant, their bodies burned to a crisp by the powerful alien energy blasts. Now, there were only 13 of us, and we had to contain the advancing wave of Crudunians. "St. Thomas," I shouted through the comms, "see those barrels of proton plasma next to the fence?" "Yes, Lieutenant," Sergeant Thomas responded. His voice was calm despite the chaos. "I need you to cover me while I blow them up." Crawling toward the barrels under heavy fire, I was just about to set the charge when a wave of Crudunians broke through the fence. Their large, muscular forms charged toward us, glowing with every energy blast we fired. We fought back furiously, but their speed was terrifying. The first wave of Crudunians slammed into our lines, and it was chaos. Sergeant Thomas fired at them, hitting a few, but the sheer force of their assault was too much. They got to us, faster than we expected, and Sergeant Thomas fell first, struck down by the alien's massive claws. I tried to return fire, but I was too late. The alien's tall figure loomed over me, towering like a beast out of a nightmare. The Crudunian grabbed me by my boot and flung me through the air, hurling me across the battlefield as though I weighed nothing. I saw the explosive charge I'd set ignite just as I was sent soaring. I watched in slow motion as the tall alien's face changed from fury to surprise, realizing what was happening. The explosion was instantaneous, engulfing him and his troops in a fiery inferno, but he had dropped to the ground as fast as lightning, and I could see him crawling away. His eyes once again crossed with mine, and a silent promise was made to each other. Now we were sworn enemies. The shockwave threw me further into the enemy lines, my body landing heavily on the dirt far from the wall. Dazed and disoriented, I crawled for cover, but I couldn't shake the image of Sergeant Thomas falling. I fought on, my weapon still in my hand, blasting as I could, but the fight was slipping away. The Crudunians were winning. We could not resist any longer. It wasn't until Earth's fleet arrived, their ships dropping from the heavens like a storm of vengeance, that the tides began to shift. The air was filled with energy blasts and the roar of exploding ships. But there was one thing I couldn't forget. The tall alien, the one who had thrown me through the air and killed Sergeant Thomas, wasn't dead. I could see it in his eyes after the explosion. He had survived. I had to find him. I had to make him pay for Sergeant Thomas's death. Months passed as Earth's forces pushed the remaining Crudunians off Proxima B. The survivors scattered, hiding in the darkest corners of the planet. I could feel it in my bones. The tall alien, the one who had been responsible for so much suffering, was still alive. I couldn't rest until he was dead. I was assigned to a special mission, a search and destroy operation tasked with hunting down the last of the enemy forces on Proxima B. My personal vendetta had become my driving force. The alien who had thrown me was out there somewhere, in the dark side of the planet, the place where no light reached. The radiation levels on the bright side were lethal to most, but the Crudunians on the dark side had survived. With a small team of soldiers, I began to scour the planet's most desolate and dangerous locations, heading toward the dark side. We tracked signs of the Crudunians' presence: broken weapons, burned-out campfires, strange footprints in the dust. Our journey led us deeper into the barren, shadow-filled terrain. I could feel the alien's presence stalking me from the depths of the darkness. Every step brought me closer to him. Weeks passed, and we continued the relentless pursuit, closing in on the last known locations of the Crudunians. Eventually, we found them, an encampment hidden in a cave system deep within the planet's dark side. But it wasn't just any Crudunians I found. There, among the wreckage of their ships, was the one I had been hunting, the tall alien. He stood like a shadow in the cave's entrance, his dark eyes reflecting the faintest light, and the air seemed to hum with his presence. I didn't wait for him to make the first move. I charged in, firing my plasma weapon at his chest. He dodged, moving like a blur, and in an instant he was upon me. His claws slashed through the air, aiming for my throat. I barely managed to duck and counter with a plasma blast that caught him across the side, but it only slowed him down. With a roar, the Crudunian charged again, knocking me to the ground. My weapon flew from my grasp as he pinned me beneath him. His cold, alien eyes glared down at me, savoring the moment of victory. The same eyes that had stared at me as he threw me through the air months ago. I wasn't finished yet. With all the strength I had left, I reached for the knife at my belt. I thrust it into his side, but it barely fazed him. Yellow, thick, steaming hot blood oozed from the wound, and the alien let out a furious scream. He swung his massive fists at me, each blow like a hammer. I could feel my bones creaking under the force. But I couldn't let him win. This was the moment. With a final burst of energy, I drove the blade deep into his chest, right where his heart would be. The alien's roar echoed through the cave as he staggered back. His towering form crumpled to the ground, and with his final breath, he let out one last guttural growl. It was over. I had avenged Sergeant Thomas. I had fulfilled my destiny. I could barely stand. The fight had taken everything out of me. My body was battered, covered in blood and dirt, and I could feel my strength slipping away. The cave seemed to spin around me as I collapsed beside the alien's body. I was alive, but I didn't know for how much longer. Earth's forces had won the war, but the price had been high. The planet was ours, but it had come at a great cost. My body was broken, but in my heart, I knew one thing. I had kept my promise. I had made the alien pay for Sergeant Thomas's death. As I lay there in the dark, the weight of the battle finally began to settle. I could feel the warmth of the planet's radiation on my skin, and I knew that Proxima B would be safe, at least for now. The surviving soldiers would rebuild, we would rebuild, and the galaxy would know that humanity would never back down. If you like this story, please comment, like, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell for upcoming videos. Until then, let your imagination run wild. We'll get there. HFY.